Year 2387, September 14th, Zel-1 prime orbital space. The debris field stretched for 300 kilometers. What had been 200 Zelvani battleships 4 hours ago now drifted as twisted metal and frozen atmosphere. Bodies floated among the wreckage, young warriors who would never see home again. At the center of the carnage, a single human battlecruiser held position. Its hull bore no scars. Its shields had never flickered. In the 4 hours of combat, it had not lost a single crew member. The voice that cut through the silence belonged to a woman who had seen too much. They asked us why Earth stayed peaceful for 300 years. Captain Evelyn Harper stood on the bridge of the Retribution, watching the debris spin slowly in the void. Her reflection in the viewport showed a woman of 52 with brown hair streaked with gray and eyes that had learned to hide grief behind duty. The truth is simple. We weren't peaceful. We were building. She turned away from the window. This is the story of what happens when someone mistakes patience for weakness, when they confuse mercy with vulnerability, when they forget that the quiet ones are often quiet for a reason. Her hand moved to the communications panel. This is how 300 years of preparation answered 700 murders. This is what they unleashed when they killed our healers. The screen before her showed the timestamp. 3 months earlier, June 18, 2387, medical frigate Hope's Light contested space between Zelvani and Krenoth territories. The ship moved through darkness like a prayer through silence. Its hull was painted the white of snow under moonlight. Red crosses marked every surface, symbols older than spaceflight. Symbols that meant one thing across 100 species and 1,000 worlds. Sanctuary. Captain Evelyn Harper had commanded the Hope's Light for 5 years. Before that, she had spent 15 years as chief engineer at Titan Orbital Yards. Before that, she had been a mother. Her daughter had died 10 years ago in a colony raid. The grief had driven Evelyn from engineering to medicine, from building weapons to healing wounds. She had believed that saving lives was better than taking them. She stood on the bridge, now coffee growing cold in her hand, watching the stars that never changed. The war between the Zelvani Collective and the Krenoth Empire had burned for 3 years. Thousands dead on both sides, millions displaced, and through it all, ships like hers moved between the battle lines, gathering the wounded, treating the dying, asking nothing about which flag they served. Captain Morning report. Lieutenant Jameson Blake was 28 and had the kind of face that still believed in happy endings. His fingers moved across the communication console with practiced efficiency. Zelvani Patrol acknowledges our position. Krenoth Fleet Command has confirmed safe passage through Sector 7. We're clear to transit the combat zone. Evelyn nodded, sipping coffee that had gone bitter. 5 years of this. 5 years of collecting broken bodies from both sides of someone else's war. Sometimes she wondered if either side even remembered why they were fighting. Status of our patients. Dr. Frederick Grant walked onto the bridge datapad in hand. He was 55 with the kind of grey beard that made people trust him instantly. 23 years he had been saving lives. First on Earth, then on Mars, then out here in the dark between stars. He had been the one who convinced Evelyn to transfer to medical after her daughter died, had told her that grief could make you cruel or compassionate, that the choice was hers. Critical cases are stable. The Krenoth soldiers we picked up yesterday are responding well to treatment. The Zelvani commander in Bay 3 is conscious and asking about his crew. Tell him his crew is fine. Tell him we don't choose sides. Frederick smiled. It was tired but genuine. Already did. He cried, said we were the first people in 3 years who treated him like a person instead of an enemy. Something tight squeezed in Evelyn's chest. This was why they did it. This moment. This recognition that beneath the uniforms and the flags and the rhetoric everyone bled the same red. We should reach the neutral medical station in 18 hours. Then we can transfer them to long-term care and head back for another run. 18 hours. Then they would do it all again, sail into fire, collect the wounded, save who they could,
The cycle never ended. The war never stopped. But the rules held. Even enemies respected medical ships. That was how civilization worked. Captain Ensign Riley Morrison sat at the sensor station, red hair, pulled back, tight eyes fixed on her screens. At 23, she was the youngest crew member, fresh from the academy.
Still believed that following the rules meant something. I have a contact. Zelvani Heavy Cruiser. IFF reads as Talon's Edge. They're holding position at the edge of our transit corridor. Evelyn set down her coffee. Hail them, Lieutenant Blake. Send our medical status again, just to be certain. Jameson's hands moved. The communication laser locked on target. Sending now, Captain. 5 seconds. 10. 15. They're responding. Audio only. The voice that came through the speakers had been translated into English by computers that had learned Zelvani vocal patterns decades ago. It was male, professional, calm. Human vessel Hope's Light. This is Commander Draken of the Talon's Edge. We acknowledge your medical status. Your passage is recognized under Galactic Council Protocol 7. Healing has no enemies. Evelyn felt her shoulders relax. Thank you, Commander. We're carrying wounded from both Zelvani and Krenoth forces. Our destination is Station Mercy 7. Estimated arrival 1900 hours tomorrow. A pause. 2 heartbeats. Understood, Captain Harper. Safe travels. The collective honors those who heal. The channel closed. Evelyn picked up her coffee again. Still bitter, still cold, but the tension had left her spine. See, even in war, some things stay sacred. She took a sip. Riley's voice cut through the calm like a blade through a silk. Captain, the Talon's Edge just transmitted an encrypted burst, high energy, short duration, directed towards Zelvan Prime. Frederick looked up from his datapad. That's unusual. Why would they? Captain, I'm intercepting follow-up transmissions on military bands. Pattern analysis suggests. Captain, I think they just sent a targeting package. The coffee cup stopped halfway to Evelyn's mouth. What? Backtracking the encryption. Running pattern analysis against known Zelvani military codes. Riley's fingers flew across her console. She was young, but she was good. The academy had taught her well. Got it. Partial decrypt. Reading target confirmed. Hospital ship verified. Medical status authenticated. Vessel classified as soft target. The temperature on the bridge seemed to drop 10 degrees. Awaiting final authorization for tactical test. Evelyn's hand moved to her command chair, fingers finding the secure channel to Earth Command. The channel that connected to only one person. Jameson opened a priority channel. Admiral Garrett, eyes only, maximum encryption. Captain, that'll take 3 minutes to establish secure. Do it now. Her voice had changed. The other officers heard it. The softness was gone. Something harder had taken its place. Something that had been sleeping for 5 years but had never truly died. The face that appeared on her private screen was carved from old oak and hard choices. Admiral Nathaniel Garrett was 68. White hair, eyes like winter lakes. 46 years in the fleet. Every ship, every rank, every hard decision that command demanded. He had been her commanding officer when she was at Titan Yards, had taught her how to build ships that could crack planets, had trusted her with secrets that could break worlds, had approved her transfer to medical after her daughter died even though it meant losing his best engineer. Evelyn, you look worried. Sir, we've got a situation. Zelvani cruiser just transmitted encrypted data after acknowledging our medical status. My sensor officer intercepted fragments. They're calling us a soft target, waiting for authorization for something called a tactical test. Garrett's expression did not change, but something shifted behind his eyes. Are you in immediate danger? Not yet. They acknowledged our status. But Admiral, this feels wrong. This feels like someone probing to see if we'll actually respond. Yes, sir. A long pause. On her screen, Garrett looked past her as if seeing something far away or long ago. Stay calm, Evelyn. Follow Geneva protocols. Do your duty. Help the wounded. If they're testing us, the worst thing we can do is show fear. And if they attack, his eyes came back to hers. In them, she saw something that made her remember why he was called the Old Wolf. Why younger officers whispered that he had fought in wars before most of them were born. Why some claimed he had been there when the hidden fleets were built. Then they'll learn why Earth has been quiet for 300 years. The channel closed. Evelyn stood alone on the bridge, surrounded by her crew, feeling the weight of words unsaid. She knew things they did not, had built things they would never see, had helped construct the machinery that had been sleeping in the dark for longer than most of these officers had been alive. During her 15 years at Titan Yards, she had overseen the construction of vessels marked Historical Archive, had installed weapon systems in ships labeled Decommissioned, had signed off on power cores that could run a city being placed in hulls that supposedly no longer existed. She had asked Garrett once why they built so many ships in secret. He had shown her footage of Earth 300 years ago. Nuclear winter, burning cities, billions dead, and then the Vorlons arriving, alien, powerful, offering mercy to a species that had nearly destroyed itself. They could have conquered us, Garrett had said. We were helpless. Instead, they rebuilt us, gave us technology, taught us the stars, then left. But before they left, their commander told me something I've never forgotten. Hope for peace, but prepare for those who mistake mercy for weakness. The universe is not kind to the unprepared. So we prepared, Garrett had continued. For 300 years, we built, and we waited, and we hoped we'd never need it. Now standing on the bridge of the Hope's light, Evelyn understood that the waiting might be over. Captain, should we alter course? Request escort? She looked at Riley. So young, so certain the rules still mattered. No, we're a medical vessel. We're protected by every law and treaty and custom. We stay on course. We trust the system. Even as she said it, she felt the lie. 4 hours later, the attack came without warning. One moment the Talon's Edge was holding position 200 kilometers off their starboard side. Professional distance, respectful spacing. The next moment, every alarm on the Hope's light screamed at once. Captain, the Talon's Edge is charging weapons. All weapon systems are powering up. Energy signature is spiking. They're preparing to fire. Riley's voice had gone high with shock. Evelyn's hand slammed down on the ship-wide intercom. All hands battle stations. This is not a drill. Raise shields. Seal all bulkheads. Medical teams secure patients immediately. Jameson was already opening channels, broadcasting on every frequency they had. Talon's Edge. This is Hope's Light. We are a protected medical vessel under Galactic Council Protocol 7. We carry wounded from both sides of your conflict. You are in violation of. The channel stayed silent. Frederick grabbed a railing. Evelyn, we have patients in surgery right now. 3 critical cases. If we make evasive maneuvers, I know. Her voice was steady, but her hands were shaking. She pressed the intercom again. Every crew member would hear this. Every doctor and nurse and medic. All 700 souls on this ship who had dedicated their lives to healing. All hands. This is the captain. What could she say? What words mattered now? I need you to know that serving with you has been the greatest honor of my life. Riley's voice cracked. Multiple plasma torpedoes incoming. 20 seconds to impact. Evelyn thought of Admiral Garrett, of the ships as she had built, of the weapons that slept in warehouses marked Historical Archive, of her daughter whose death had brought her here, of Frederick, who had taught her that grief could make you compassionate, of all the choices that had led to this moment. Brace for impact. The first torpedo hit the port side of the Hope's Light. It tore through shields designed for asteroid impacts, not military weapons. The explosion ripped through Medical Bay 3, where Zelvani and Krenoth, wounded, had been sleeping in beds side by side. Enemies healing together, dying together. The second torpedo hit the engine room. Engineering, where Evelyn had spent 15 years of her life, learning to build ships before she learned to heal people. The power core began to fracture. Radiation alarms screamed. Emergency bulkheads slammed shut, sealing the crew inside to burn. The third torpedo hit Medical Bay 1. Dr. Frederick Grant was there trying to stabilize a Greenoth soldier whose chest had been crushed in battle. The explosion found them both. Evelyn watched her screens die one by one. Life support, propulsion, communications, shields, 700 people on her ship, 700 doctors and nurses and medics and engineers, 700 people who had spent their lives healing others, who had sailed into war zones with only their symbols and their hope and their belief that mercy meant something. She thought of the conversation with Garrett. His words echoed. Then they learn why Earth has been quiet for 300 years. The fourth torpedo struck the bridge. Evelyn felt the deck buckle beneath her, felt the viewport shatter, felt the void reaching for her. Her last thought was of her daughter, of Frederick, of all the people she had tried to save. Then the ammunition storage exploded. The Hope's light became a ball of white fire that lit up the darkness for just a moment. Then it was gone, almost gone. In the chaos of the explosion, emergency protocols activated. The bridge section separated. Medical escape pods launched. Engineering compartments sealed and ejected. Debris scattered across 300 kilometers. Medical equipment tumbling through vacuum. Bodies in white uniforms. A stuffed bear that one of the nurses had kept on her desk. And buried deep within the largest piece of wreckage, a medical escape pod. Red emergency beacon flashing. Inside, barely alive Captain Evelyn Harper. Broken. Unconscious. Lung collapsed. Arm shattered. But alive. 40 light years away. Earth. North American Defense Command. The automated distress signal arrived, traveling faster than light, riding quantum entanglement channels that most species did not know existed. In the command center deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, Admiral Nathaniel Garrett stood watching displays that showed the location of every human ship in known space. Who watched the Hope's lights beacon. He watched it flicker. Who watched it die. His aide, Commander Derek Stone, stood beside him. Young, competent, did not yet understand the weight that was about to fall. Sir, initial analysis indicates deliberate fire from Zelvani cruiser Talon's Edge. The Hope's light was broadcasting medical status on all frequencies. Every protocol was followed. There was no warning, no provocation. They just opened fire. Garrett's jaw tightened. Life signs. Scanning the debris field now. Wait, sir, we're detecting emergency beacons. Multiple pods ejected. At least 3 showing active life support. Dispatch rescue teams. Immediately. Fastest ships we have. Already done, sir. ETA 2 hours. Garrett stared at the display. 2 hours. Evelyn might not have 2 hours. None of them might. And the Talon's Edge withdrew immediately after the attack, returning to Zelvani space. Track it. I want to know where it goes, who it reports to, every communication it makes. Derek hesitated. Sir, are we going to? Should I alert the president? Garrett looked at him. In his eyes, something ancient and cold. Get me President Brennan. Tell her it's time to remind the galaxy why you don't touch our medics. Derek moved quickly to make the call. Garrett stood alone in the command center looking at the display, at the debris field where his former student's ship had been, where 700 healers had been doing their duty. On his desk sat a photo. Evelyn at her graduation from the academy, young, smiling, believing the universe was fair. He picked it up. Hold on, kid. We're coming for you. He set it down and began making calls that would reshape the galaxy. Within 1 hour, the machinery began to move. Emergency meetings started on Earth. The president was briefed in her private quarters at 0:00. The Secretary of Defense pulled up files that had not been opened in decades. The Joint Chiefs assembled in a room that did not officially exist. The word went out to every human colony, every human ship, every human outpost across 200 light years. The Hope's light was destroyed. Most crew lost. Deliberate attack. Rescue teams were en route. And something else was coming. In orbit above Mars at the Titan orbital yards, where Evelyn Harper had spent 15 years building ships, the third shift supervisor received a message on channels that had been silent for 300 years. Protocol Fenrir. Authorization Presidential. He stared at the screen for 10 seconds. Then he reached for the emergency intercom. All personnel, this is not a drill. Initiate Protocol Fenrir. Repeat. Fenrir is active. Unsealing classified sectors 1 through 47. Powering up reserve fleet. God help us all. Across the solar system, in warehouses marked historical archive, in shipyards marked decommissioned, in facilities marked surplus equipment, lights began to turn on. Ships that had been sleeping in the dark for 300 years opened their eyes. Weapons that had never been fired charged for the first time. Reactors that could power cities hummed to life. And in a small medical facility on Mars, rescue teams arrived, carrying 3 survivors from the Hope's light debris field. 2 engineers, 1 nurse, and Captain Evelyn Harper, barely alive, rushed into surgery. 2 hours after the Hope's light died, the United Earth Parliament convened. The chamber was built to hold 200 representatives from every colony, every station, every settlement humanity had established among the stars. Tonight it was full. Tonight every single representative had come. President Catherine Brennan walked to the speaker's platform. She was 62, had been in politics for 40 years, had won her election on promises of peace and prosperity and cooperation with the galactic community. Tonight, her face looked like it had been carved from stone. The holographic screens around the chamber showed the debris field. Pieces of what used to be a hospital ship floated in the darkness. Bodies in white uniforms, medical equipment, a child's toy drifting alone. 697 personnel confirmed dead. Catherine's voice filled the chamber, hard, cold. Doctors, nurses, medics, surgeons, engineers. They were not soldiers. They carried no weapons. They flew under the protection of every galactic law and treaty. And they were murdered. She paused. 3 survivors. Critical condition. We don't know yet if they'll make it. The chamber was silent. The Zelvani Collective has issued a statement. They claim the attack was a tragic mistake. A rogue commander acting without authorization. They offer compensation and apologies. She paused. Her hands gripped the podium so hard, her knuckles went white. I say their apologies are not enough. Representative Helen Shaw was crying quietly in her seat. Her son had been a medic on the Hope's Light. He was 24 years old. Would have been 25 next month. His body was still out there in the debris field. Admiral Garrett stood up from his seat. Every eye in the chamber turned to him. 46 years in uniform, 17 major battles, every hard decision that command demanded. His face showed them all. Madam President, members of Parliament, I have served this fleet since I was 22 years old. I have ordered attacks that still haunt my dreams. He paused. But I have never once authorized fire on a medical vessel. Never. Because there are lines that cannot be crossed. When someone crosses them, they must learn why those lines exist. General Kevin Shaw stood next. Commander of the Earth Marine Corps. No relation to the crying representative, but he understood her grief. The Galactic Council is calling for restraint. They want investigations. Committees, diplomatic solutions. Meanwhile, the Zelvani commander responsible has been quietly promoted and transferred. This is how they treat the murder of our healers. The debate went on for 6 hours. Some members called for sanctions, legal action, working through proper channels. Others demanded immediate military response. Videos played on the screens. The Hope's Light on previous missions. Captain Harper, smiling as she welcomed wounded soldiers onto her ship. Dr. Grant, working to save a Krenoth warrior who had been burned in battle. Nurses singing birthday songs for a young pilot who turned 20 while recovering from injuries. When the vote finally came, it was not even close. 287 to 13. Earth would go to war. Above Mars, in the fleet staging area, ships began to gather. Captain Alexander Murphy received his orders at 0300. He just stood on the bridge of the battle cruiser Vengeance, watching the fleet assemble. The ship was new, 5 years old, built with technology that made other species nervous. Humans had spent 10,000 years fighting each other. They knew how to build things that killed efficiently. All department heads report to the briefing room. Alexander was 42, young for a battlecruiser captain, but he had earned his rank fighting the Krenoth in the border skirmishes. He knew war, knew its costs. Commander Sophia Turner was already in the briefing room when he arrived. She was his executive officer, 38, had served on 7 ships, never lost her edge. Captain, we're being assigned to Battle Group 7, 12 heavy cruisers, 6 battle cruisers, 2 carriers. The Vengeance will be flagship. Alexander looked at the star map. Their target glowed on the display. The Zelvani home system. They're not holding back. No, sir. Admiral Garrett wants this to be unmistakable. Lieutenant David Kim entered next. Weapons officer, former engineer from Titan Yards, had worked with Evelyn Harper on several projects. Captain, I've been reviewing our targeting priorities. The intelligence package is very detailed. Someone spent a lot of time planning this. His voice was tight, personal. Show me. The hologram changed. A yellow sun, 6 planets, 2 of them populated. The third planet, Zelvan Prime, held their capital and military headquarters. The Zelvani have 14 orbital defense platforms. Each one equals a heavy cruiser in firepower. Their home fleet has 8 battleships and about 40 support vessels. On paper, they outnumber us significantly. On paper, Sophia repeated softly, but they've never faced a coordinated human assault. Alexander nodded slowly. Humanity had learned warfare the hard way, fighting themselves for 10,000 years, 3 world wars, countless smaller conflicts. When they reached the stars, they brought that knowledge with them, and for 300 years they had built on it, refined it, perfected it in secret, while pretending to be peaceful traders and explorers. The briefing continued for another hour. Charts showed approach vectors, lists detailed every target, backup plans, covered contingencies. When it ended, Alexander stood and addressed his crew over the ship-wide intercom. All hands, this is the captain. In 6 hours, we depart for the Zelvani home system. I will not lie to you about what we're facing. The Zelvani are a warrior culture with a military tradition spanning thousands of years. They are experienced and disciplined and well armed. He paused, looking out at Mars through the window, the red planet where humanity had taken its first steps beyond Earth. But they made one critical mistake. They forgot that before humans were explorers, before we were diplomats or traders, we were survivors. We are a species that conquered our own world 100 times over, and now they will learn what that means. His voice grew colder. They killed our healers. They murdered people who existed only to save lives. The Galactic Council can debate and investigate all they want. We are going to deliver a different kind of verdict. Throughout the fleet, similar speeches happened on dozens of ships. On the carrier Thunderchild, Admiral Garrett addressed his strike group commanders through holographic conference. The objective is simple. When we are finished, the Zelvani collective will not have the military capacity to threaten anyone for a generation. We are going to break them so thoroughly that every species in the galaxy will remember what happens when you attack a human medical ship. The conference ended. Garrett sat alone in his office, looking at personnel files. 697 faces looked back at him from the screen. The confirmed dead. Evelyn Harper's photo was not among them. She was in surgery, critical, unknown if she would survive. He pulled up another file. The 300 years of hidden construction. The ships that officially did not exist. The weapons that treaties claimed had never been built. Computer record a message for the fleet. The recording light came on. This is Admiral Garrett to all personnel of Task Force Retribution. In a few hours, we will cross into Zelvani space. What we do there will echo through history. Some will call us vengeful. Some will call us monsters. Let them. He paused. we are the answer to a simple question. What happens when you murder those who exist only to heal? Remember the hope's light. Remember why we do not forgive this. And show them why humanity's mercy is a gift, not a weakness. The recording ended. The fleet began to move. 20 battle cruisers, 12 heavy cruisers, 6 carriers, 200 support vessels. They gathered information above Mars, their hulls painted the grey of storm clouds, their weapons cold but ready. But as they assembled, something else was happening. In the asteroid belt in shipyard that had been marked decommissioned for 300 years, more ships were powering up. Ships that had never appeared on any registry. Ships that most of the galaxy did not know existed. Warehouse doors opened that had been sealed since before the Zelvani had even achieved spaceflight. And from the darkness from facilities marked historical archive and surplus equipment and museum storage, more vessels emerged. Dozens, hundreds, thousands. A young sensor operator on the Vengeance watched his screen with growing disbelief. "Sir, I'm detecting additional ships joining the formation. Dozens of them, no, hundreds. Sir, where the hell are they all coming from?" Commander Sophia Turner looked at her tactical display. Then she looked at Captain Murphy. "From Earth, Lieutenant. They're coming from Earth." The operator's voice rose. "Ma'am, that's impossible. There aren't that many ships in the entire fleet. These IFF codes are... They're 300 years old. These ships were supposed to be decommissioned, scrapped." Sophia smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. "They were never scrapped, Lieutenant. They were hidden, and now someone just woke them up." On his command deck, Admiral Garrett watched the fleet swell, watched ships that had been sleeping in the dark for 3 centuries shake off the dust and take their place in formation. Watched humanity's true strength finally show itself. The final count came through. 3,412 warships. Every one of them armed with weapons that would make the Galactic Council's blood run cold. Every one of them crewed by humans who had trained for war since childhood but had never needed to fight until now. Garrett opened a channel to all ships. "This is Admiral Garrett. All vessels prepare for hyperspace jump. Destination Zelvan Prime. They wanted to see what we really are." He looked at a medical report on his screen. Evelyn Harper had survived surgery, was in critical condition but stable. She would live to see what her work had built. "Let's show them." The fleet jumped. 3,412 ships vanishing from normal space riding gravitational waves that bent reality itself, heading toward a civilization that had just made the worst mistake in its history, heading toward a reckoning 300 years in the making. In the wreckage of the Hope's light, still drifting in the dark, a small stuffed bear continued to tumble slowly through vacuum. It had belonged to a nurse named Lisa Harper. She had kept it on her desk for good luck. The bear's button eyes reflected starlight as it spun, silent witness to the end of mercy and the beginning of something else entirely. June 22nd, 2387, Battlecruiser Vengeance. En route to Zelvan Prime, Captain Alexander Murphy stood in the Combat Information Center surrounded by holographic display that showed 3,412 points of light. Each point was a warship. Each warship carried crew who had trained their entire lives for a war they hoped would never come. That hope had died with the Hope's light. Commander Sophia Turner worked at the tactical station, her fingers moving across controls that could target a city from orbit or crack a planet's crust. She looked up as Alexander approached. "Final fleet roster is in, Captain. We're organized into 12 battle groups. Vengeance leads Battle Group 7. 6 battle cruisers, 12 heavy cruisers, 2 carriers, 43 support vessels. And the others? Battle Groups 1 through 6 are standard assault configuration. Groups 8 through 12 are equipped with specialized ordnance. Admiral Garrett is keeping those in reserve." Alexander nodded. "Specialized ordnance." Polite words for weapons that bent reality in ways the Galactic Council had banned centuries ago. Weapons that Earth had signed treaties promising never to build. treaties that had been lies from the moment the ink dried. Time to Zelvan system. 72 hours at current speed will arrive information. All ships, all at once. 72 hours, 3 days. And then the Zelvani would learn what 300 years of preparation looked like. Lieutenant David Kim entered the CIC carrying a data slate. His expression was dark. Captain, I've completed analysis of the Hope's Light's final transmissions. The sensor data Ensign Morrison managed to send before the escape pods launched. He paused. Alexander waited. So the Talon's Edge transmitted an encrypted message 30 seconds before opening fire. We've broken the encryption. It was a confirmation to Zelvani High Command. The message read, target verified, medical status confirmed, recommend proceeding with tactical assessment as planned. Sophia looked up sharply. Tactical assessment. They murdered 700 healers as an assessment. It gets worse, Commander. There was a reply from High Command. Direct authorization from Councillor Vexar himself. Message reads, proceed, test human resolve, verify species compliance with defensive posture doctrine. The temperature in the CIC seemed to drop. Alexander's voice was quiet, deadly quiet. They killed our healers to see if we would actually do anything about it. Yes, sir. It was a test. They wanted to know if we were really as committed to non-violence as we appeared. If our mercy was real or just theater. Well, Alexander looked at the display showing 3,000 ships. They're about to get their answer. Distribute this intelligence to all battle group commanders. I want everyone to know this wasn't an accident. It wasn't some rogue commander. It was policy. David left to send the briefing. Sophia stood beside Alexander, both of them watching the fleet spread across the holographic display like stars in the void. They wanted to test us, she said softly, so we're going to give them an exam they'll never forget. Aboard the flagship Thunderchild, Admiral's conference room. Admiral Nathaniel Garrett sat at the head of a table that did not physically exist. Around him, 11 other figures shimmered in holographic projection. The commanders of each battle group. Some he had served with for decades. Others were younger, promoted rapidly. When the fleet expanded, all of them understood what was coming. Status reports. Battle Group 1, you're up first. Commodore Rachel Winters appeared first. She commanded Battle Group 1 from the heavy cruiser Defiant. 50 years old. Had been there when the Hope's Light left on its final mission. Had friends on that ship. Her sister had been a doctor. Was now frozen in a Mars morgue, awaiting burial. Battle Group 1 reports full combat readiness. Admiral, all ships have completed weapons checks. Crews are at peak efficiency. We're ready to hurt them. Battle Group 2, Captain Marcus Webb commanded from the carrier Resolute. Former fighter pilot. Had lost a leg to enemy fire and refused to retire. Took a desk job that turned into a command position. Battle Group 2 standing by. Fighter wings are prepped and loaded. We've got 400 strike craft ready to deploy. Point defense systems are hot. Ready on your mark, sir. The reports continued. Battle Groups 3 through 12 all reporting the same status. Ready, armed, waiting. When the reports finished, Garrett leaned forward. Intelligence analysis indicates the Zelvani home fleet consists of 8 battleships, 14 orbital defense platforms, and approximately 40 support vessels. On paper, they outnumber our initial assault force. On paper doesn't win wars, Rachel said. Her voice was ice. Sir, with respect, we've been studying their tactics for 300 years. They fight like everyone else in the council. Rigid formations, predictable maneuvers, honor-bound engagements. We're going to eat them alive. We will engage with overwhelming force and absolute precision, Garrett agreed. But remember our rules of engagement. Military targets only. I want their war machine dismantled, not their civilization destroyed. We're not conquerors, we're teachers, and the lesson is going to be very, very clear. He paused. When we are finished, the Zelvani will understand why attacking Earth's healers is the worst mistake they could possibly make. But they will also see that we could have done worse, much worse. That distinction matters. What about civilian casualties? Admiral Captain Webb asked. Minimize them. Every targeting package has been reviewed 3 times. Every strike will be preceded by evacuation warnings. We will give them time to run, but we will not give them mercy on their military. He pulled up another file. Update on Captain Harper. She survived surgery. Critical but stable. Doctors gave her 70% chance of full recovery. She's awake. Asked to be kept informed of fleet status. The commanders nodded, some with relief, some with grim satisfaction. Their captain had survived. Now they would make sure her sacrifice meant something. The conference ended. The commanders vanished one by one, returning to their ships to make final preparations. Gareth sat alone in his ready room afterward, looking at a photograph on his desk. Evelyn Harper as a young lieutenant at Titan Yards, standing beside a ship she had helped design, proud, smiling, believing that the building weapons meant they would never need to be used. "You're alive, kid," he said quietly. "That's something. Hold on. We'll finish this for you." June 25th, 2387. Edge of Zelvan system. 0600 hours. The Zelvani home system of Zelvan Prime had not been attacked in 3,000 years of recorded history. Defense platforms circled the inhabited worlds. The home fleet patrolled with confidence born from centuries of safety. Admiral Kestros stood on the bridge of the battleship Pride of Zelvan. His dorsal crest was raised high, his secondary hearts beating steady. Morning reports showed all systems normal. The war with the Krenoth continued to go well. Recent offensives had pushed the enemy back on 3 fronts. The incident with the human medical vessel had been unfortunate. Commander Draken had followed orders from High Command. Councillor Vexar had assured everyone that the humans would accept compensation. File protests. Eventually move on. That was how these things worked. Admiral Sensor Contact. The voice of his sensor officer carried a note of uncertainty that made Kestros's crest lower slightly. Identify. Working on it, sir. Multiple hyperspace ruptures at the system boundary. Significant energy signatures. Very significant. Kestros moved to the tactical display. How many? Counting 12 contacts. No. 15. 20. Sir, it's an entire fleet. Configuration matches human military vessels. The bridge went silent. Every officer turned to look at their commander. This was impossible. Nobody attacked a Galactic Council member's home system. Not over a single incident. Not when diplomatic channels existed. Not when the Council itself would mediate. Battle stations. Activate all defense platforms. Recall all patrol elements to defensive positions. His voice stayed steady, but his tertiary heart was racing. Get me a channel to the human commander and contact Councillor Vexar immediately. He needs to know his assessment may have had unexpected results. The tactical display updated as human ships continued to emerge from hyperspace. 20 vessels, 30, 50, 100. Kestros felt something cold settle in his chest. How many ships do the humans have? Sir, we're detecting 200 contacts now. No, more are still arriving. 250, 300. The sensor officer's voice climbed with each number. His younger officer, Sub-Commander Tavish, spoke up from the tactical station. Sir, those energy signatures don't match known human fleet composition. These ships are older. The reactor profiles suggest designs from 300 years ago, but that's impossible. Those ships were decommissioned. Admiral, there are over 3,000 human warships entering our system. 3,000. The number did not make sense. Human fleet strength was estimated at 12 battle groups, perhaps 200 ships total. Where had 3,000 come from? Channel established, Admiral. Kestros straightened, raising his crest to full display. Authority, confidence, dignity. Human Commander, this is Admiral Kestros of the Zelvani Collective Defense Force. You are entering our sovereign space with military forces. Explain your intentions immediately, or we will consider this an act of war. The response came from a human female. Her image appeared on his screen, old for a human, white hair, eyes like winter ice. The voice was colder still. Admiral Kestros, this is Admiral Nathaniel Garrett, commanding Task Force Retribution. Your forces destroyed the medical frigate Hope's Light. You murdered 697 unarmed personnel engaged in humanitarian operations. We are here to deliver consequences. Kestros' crest flattened completely. You have 2 hours to evacuate all non-military personnel from orbital facilities. Alert your civilian population to seek shelter. After that, we will begin operations. This is outrageous. Commander Draken followed orders from Councillor Vexar himself. This was an authorized tactical assessment. The collective has offered full reparations. You cannot attack a council world over a planned military operation. The moment the words left his mouth, Kestros realized his mistake. The human's expression did not change, but something in those eyes ignited. Planned, military, operation. Garrett's voice was arctic. You just confirmed what we suspected. This wasn't an accident. It was policy. Thank you, Admiral. You've made my job easier. Kestros scrambled to recover. That's not what the context was. Watch us. The channel closed. Tavish turned to Kestros' crest, flat with horror. Sir, we just admitted it was deliberate. We just told them High Command ordered it. Kestros felt his blood run cold. He had been trying to explain, to provide context. Instead, he had condemned his entire civilization. Get me Councillor Vexar. Now. 2 hours later, the Zelvani home fleet moved to intercept. 8 battleships, 14 orbital defense platforms, 42 support vessels. They formed a defensive line between the human fleet and Zelvan Prime. Admiral Kestros had called for reinforcements from neighboring systems, but they would take days to arrive. For now, he had to hold with what he had. Councillor Vexar's response to his urgent message had been brief. Maintain defensive posture. They are bluffing. No species attacks a council homeworld. Stall for reinforcements. All ships maintain formation. Humans are aggressive, but they are not suicidal. Once they see our defensive strength, they will negotiate. His tactical officer Tavish looked uncertain. The young officer had been voicing concerns all morning. Sir, they outnumber us 15-1. Numbers are not everything, Sub-Commander. We have fought for 3,000 years. We know war. They have been peaceful for 300. They are merchants and diplomats. This is theater meant to intimidate us into larger reparations. Tavish did not look convinced, but said nothing. He had been the one to question the attack on the Hope's Light before it happened, had argued it violated protocols, had been overruled. Now he watched 3,000 human warships deploy with the precision of a species that had never forgotten how to kill. On the Vengeance, Captain Alexander Murphy watched the Zelvani fleet deploy into classic defensive formation. Predictable, textbook, exactly what every simulation had predicted they would do. They're thinking like this is a game of chess, Sophia observed. They don't understand what's coming. No, Alexander agreed. They really don't. All ships, this is Vengeance Actual. Execute battle plan Hammerfall. Focus fire as designated. No warnings, no posturing. Just hit them. The human fleet split into 3 groups. Battle groups 1 through 4 dove toward the Zelvani left flank, accelerating to speeds that made their inertial dampeners scream. Battle groups 5 through 8 are kept high, taking position above the orbital plane. Battle groups 9 through 12 went low, creating a 3-dimensional trap. It was not chess. It was not honor. It was 300 years of accumulated military doctrine applied with surgical precision. They're attempting a pincer movement, Tavish reported. Recommend we concentrate fire on the center group, break through and engage their command ships. But before Kestros could give the order, the humans opened fire. Humanity had spent 10,000 years perfecting naval warfare on Earth's oceans. They understood crossfire encirclement, concentration of force. When they took those lessons to space, they adapted rather than abandoned them. The Zelvani had spent 3,000 years fighting other council species who valued honor, who announced attacks, who fought in neat formations and respected traditional engagement ranges. The humans did none of those things. The battleship Eternal Glory took the first salvo from 3 human cruisers simultaneously. Railgun rounds moving at substantial fractions of light speed punched through shields designed to stop energy weapons. The rounds were not explosive. They did not need to be. At those velocities, kinetic energy alone was devastating. Missiles followed. Each warhead contained plasma charges that burned through armor like acid through flesh. Eternal Glory broke apart in 40 seconds. Impossible, Castros whispered. His tactical display showed the battleship simply ceased to exist. One moment it was there, the next debris. Their weapons, how are they so precise? He did not know that human targeting systems were based on centuries of trying to hit other humans who had spent just as long learning to dodge. The Zelvani ships moved in predictable patterns. Their defensive tactics were designed for fighting council races who all used similar strategies. The humans fought like nothing the Zelvani had ever seen. Battle groups 1 through 4 did not mass for a single crushing blow. Instead, they moved in coordinated swarms. Each vessel supported others in overlapping fields of fire. When a Zelvani battleship tried to target a single human cruiser, 2 others would appear on its flanks, hammering at weak points that human intelligence had identified years ago. All ships reform on my position, Castros ordered desperately. Present unified front. But the human fleet did not allow it. Small fighters launched from the carriers, moving at speeds that violated every safety regulation the Council had established. They swarmed through the Zelvani formation, disrupting communications and targeting systems, not destroying ships, just blinding them. When the Zelvani vessels tried to group together, the humans deployed gravitic mines that forced them to scatter. When they scattered concentrated fire, picked them off one by one. It was not a battle, it was a dissection. Sir, the Eternal Justice is reporting critical damage. The Celestial Wrath has lost main propulsion. Defense Platform 7 is offline. Platform 3 is reporting ammunition depletion. Tavish's voice stayed professional, but Castros could hear the fear beneath it. How long have we been engaged? 47 minutes, sir. Less than an hour. And his fleet was being systematically destroyed. All ships withdraw to inner defense perimeter. We need to. An alarm cut him off. Admiral, multiple human ships are bypassing our fleet entirely. They're heading directly for the orbital platforms. On his display, Castros watched a dozen human cruisers simply ignore his battleships. They made past the Zelvani fleet like it was not even there, heading for the 14 orbital platforms that protected Zelvan Prime. Intercept them. All available units intercept. But his ships were scattered, damaged. Trying to reform while under constant attack from enemies who moved faster, shot straighter and coordinated better than anything the Zelvani had trained for. The human cruisers reached the orbital platforms. Defense Platform 1 opened fire with everything it had. Plasma cannons, missile batteries, point defense lasers. The human ships' shields flickered but held. Then they returned fire. Platform 1 lasted 90 seconds. Tavish watched it happen on his display. Watched the systematic destruction of everything the Zelvani military had built. He had known this would happen, had warned Castros, had argued against the attack on the Hope's Light, had been ignored. Now he watched his civilization pay the price. 4 hours after the battle began, Admiral Castros sat in a rescue shuttle watching the pride of Zelvan burn. His flagship, his command, the vessel that had been his home for 12 years. It tumbled slowly through space atmosphere, venting from a dozen breaches, main reactor offline, crew evacuating in whatever craft they could find. Around him, the Zelvani home fleet had ceased to exist. 6 of 8 battleships destroyed, the remaining 2 crippled and drifting. All 14 orbital defense platforms reduced to wreckage. Support vessels scattered or surrendered. Zelvani casualties exceeded 40,000. Human losses: 2 cruisers with moderate damage, 17 crew injured, 0 deaths. Tavish sat beside him in the shuttle, his crest flat with shock. How? How is this possible? We have fought for 3,000 years. We are warriors. We know combat. How did they? They lied, Castros said softly. He watched a human battle cruiser move into position over Zelvan Prime. More ships were joining it, taking up orbital positions that would allow them to strike anywhere on the planet. For 300 years they lied. They pretended to be peaceful, pretended to be merchants and explorers. But underneath, they were building, training, preparing, and we never knew. He looked at Tavish. You were right, Sub-Commander. You warned me the attack was wrong. Warned me it would have consequences. I should have listened. Tavish said nothing. What could he say? His warnings had been ignored. His civilization had paid the price. The shuttle's communication system crackled to life. Zelvani vessels, this is Admiral Garrett of Earth Forces. Your military has been defeated. Your orbital defenses are destroyed. You will cease all hostile actions immediately. Any ship that attempts to engage will be destroyed without warning. A pause. Prepare to receive terms. Zelvan Prime, Capital City, Government Center. Premier Tashiva stood in the command center watching holographic displays that showed human warships in orbit overhead. She was 55 years old, had spent her entire political career advocating for peace, had opposed the war with the Krenoth, had argued against military expansion, had specifically opposed Councillor Vexar's plan to test human resolve by attacking their medical ship. Had been ignored. Now she was the highest-ranking civilian official still at her post. The military high command had fled to bunkers. The council members who had authorized the attack on the Hope's Light had vanished into secure facilities, leaving her to face the consequences. Madame Premier, we're receiving a transmission from the human fleet. Priority Alpha. They're requesting you specifically. She straightened her civilian robes. Put it through. The hologram that appeared showed an old human male, white hair, eyes that had seen too much. Behind him she could see the bridge of a warship crew working at stations with calm efficiency. Premier Tashiva, I am Admiral Nathaniel Garrett. I understand you recently assumed control of your government. Admiral, yes, the previous leadership has temporarily relocated. I am here to negotiate surrender terms. Something flickered in those old eyes. Not satisfaction. Something sadder. I am not here to accept your surrender, Premier. Not yet. First, you need to understand what is about to happen. A new image appeared. A list. Thousands of entries. These are Zelvani military installations on your home world and colonies. Shipyards. Weapons manufacturing facilities. Military academies. Research centers. Command bunkers. Every location capable of supporting offensive military operations. Tashiva felt her blood run cold. Over the next 30 days, we will systematically destroy each of these facilities. We will provide 2-hour evacuation warnings before each strike. You will have time to clear civilians, but the installations will be demolished. Admiral, please, our people will not be harmed if they stay away from military targets. We are not here to commit genocide, Premier. We are here to teach a lesson. His expression hardened. Your High Council authorized the destruction of the Hope's Light as a tactical test. Councillor Vexar wanted to see if we would actually respond to the murder of our healers. Your own Admiral Castros admitted it was a planned military operation. They laughed about it, called us soft, prey species. The image changed again. This time it showed a recording. Zelvani High Council Chamber, Councillor Vexar speaking. Humans believe in mercy. They send healers into war zones. It makes them vulnerable. If we strike one medical ship, they'll protest, file complaints, eventually accept compensation. Prey species always do. Laughter from the other council members. Tashiva closed her eyes. She had not been in that meeting, had not been privy to high command decisions. But ignorance was not innocence. We intercepted this recording from your military networks. Garrett continued. It was stored as evidence of strategic planning. Proof that the attack was not a mistake, not a rogue commander. It was policy. The recording vanished. So now you will learn what happens when humanity's mercy is thrown back in our face, when you test whether we will actually defend our healers, when you forget that peace is a choice, not a weakness. Another image appeared. Orbital bombardment trajectories. Precise, surgical, devastating. 30 days premiere. Every military installation on your worlds will be reduced to rubble. Your civilian infrastructure will remain untouched. Cities, hospitals, schools, homes, food production, water systems, all intact. You will be left with enough to rebuild, but not enough to threaten anyone. Tashiva found her voice. And after 30 days you may surrender, and we will help you rebuild. But you will remember this. You will remember what happens when you attack Earth's healers. You will teach your children, and your children's children. And no one in your civilization will ever forget. The transmission ended. Tashiva stood alone in the command center, surrounded by displays showing human warships in perfect formation overhead. Waiting. Patient. Absolutely unstoppable. She pulled up a communication channel to the hidden bunker where Councillor Vexar had fled. Counselor, you need to see what your tactical assessment has cost us. Day 1 of the orbital bombardment, June 26, 2387. The warnings came precisely 2 hours before each strike. Civilian populations had time to evacuate. Most did. Some stayed either from stubbornness or disbelief that the humans would actually fire. They learned. The first target was the grand shipyard of Zelvan Prime. The facility had built warships for 800 years. Its construction base could produce 6 battleships simultaneously. It employed 40,000 workers. The workers had been evacuated. The shipyard had not. A ship appeared in orbit above it. Not one of the original assault fleet. This was different, newer. Its designation was Retribution, and on its bridge stood Captain Evelyn Harper. She had woken from surgery 2 days ago, had refused to stay in the medical bay, had insisted on being transferred to the nearest available command. Admiral Garrett had visited her, found her barely able to stand arm in a sling, breathing shallow from her damaged lung. "You should be in bed," he had said. "They killed my crew, my ship, everyone I was supposed to protect. I need to be here, Admiral. I need to see this through." He had looked at her for a long moment, then nodded. "The Retribution needs a captain. She's fresh from the yards, never seen combat. Seems appropriate that you take her into her first action." Now Evelyn stood on the bridge of her new command, looking down at the shipyard where Zelvani warships were built, where the vessels that killed her friends had been constructed, where future weapons would be forged if she did not act. Her crew was quiet. They knew her story, knew she had died and come back, knew this was personal in ways they could not fully understand. "Weapons you are authorized to fire." "Aye, Captain." Main railgun charged, targeting solution locked. Shiva thought of Dr. Frederick Grant, of Lieutenant Jameson Blake, of Ensign Riley Morrison, of all 697 faces she would never see again. Fire. The railgun discharged. On Zelvan Prime, a military facility that had stood for 800 years simply ceased to exist. The hypersonic projectile struck with the force of a small nuclear weapon. The kinetic energy alone was devastating. The shipyard's main structure vaporized. Secondary explosions rippled through the construction base. Fuel storage detonated. The blast could be seen from orbit. When the debris settled, nothing remained but a crater 700 meters wide. Evelyn watched it burn, felt nothing. No satisfaction, no grief. Just cold certainty that this was necessary. Next target. The bombardment continued, day after day, facility after facility, each strike preceded by warnings, each target military, each destruction absolute. The humans did not miss, did not strike civilian areas, did not allow collateral damage beyond what was unavoidable when you demolished structures from orbit. But they did not stop. Day 7, July 2nd. Military Academy reduced to rubble. The institution had trained Zelvani warriors For 2000 years, it would train no more. Day 12, July 7th, weapons research facility destroyed. The scientists had evacuated. Their research had not. 300 years of weapons development went up in plasma fire. Day 18, July 13th, command bunker complex demolished. The deep underground facility where High Command had hidden. The humans used kinetic penetrators that punched through 200 meters of rock before detonating. The bunker collapsed. Everyone inside survived, but they emerged to find themselves with no communications, no supplies, no ability to command. Councillor Vexar was among them. He was arrested immediately by Premier Tashiva's security forces. Day 23, July 18th. Orbital defense grid dismantled. Every satellite, every sensor platform, every early warning station systematically identified and destroyed. By day 30, the Zelvani military infrastructure had been erased, not conquered, not occupied, simply deleted. July 25th, 2387. Aboard the Retribution, Captain Evelyn Harper sat in her ready room reviewing the final bombardment reports. 30 days, 743 military targets destroyed. Civilian casualties under 3,000, mostly from infrastructure failures and accidents during evacuation. Zelvani military casualties, 43,000 dead, another 60,000 wounded. All the fighters who had stayed at their posts trying to defend facilities that could not be defended. Against 697 dead on the Hope's light. The mathematics of retribution. Admiral Garrett's face appeared on her screen. Captain Harper, final status report. All targets neutralized, sir. The Zelvani military no longer has offensive capacity. Defensive capacity is minimal. They have enough ships for system patrol and piracy suppression, nothing more. Civilian impact within acceptable parameters. Food production is stable. Medical facilities are intact. Power grids are functioning. Water systems operational. They can rebuild. Garrett nodded slowly. Then it's time for the next phase. Premier Tashiva has requested a meeting. She wants to discuss terms. I want you there. Me, sir. You commanded the Hope's light. You died because they wanted to test us. You came back because we don't abandon our people. I want them to see that. Want them to understand what they did when they tried to kill you. The meeting took place aboard the Retribution, July 26th, 2387. Premier Tashiva was escorted to the conference room by 2 human marines. They were polite but armed, professional but cold. Evelyn watched the premier enter. She looked tired, defeated. Her civilian robes were clean, but her posture spoke of a weight that could not be shed. Admiral Garrett stood beside Evelyn. This was their moment, together. Premier Tashiva, I am Captain Evelyn Harper. This is Admiral Nathaniel Garrett. The Premier's eyes widened when they settled on Evelyn. Harper, you were the commander of the Hope's light. We were told you died. I did. Almost. Your people tried very hard to kill me. They succeeded in killing 697 others. Tashiva sat slowly. Captain Admiral, I need you to know that many of us opposed the military's aggression. I argued against Councillor Vexar's plan. I certainly never supported testing whether you would respond to murder. I believe you, Evelyn said. Her voice was not unkind. But that doesn't change what happened. 697 people are dead because your high command thought attacking healers was an acceptable tactical assessment. I know, and now 43,000 of my people are dead in return. Evelyn leaned forward. Premier, do you understand why it was 43,000 and not 43 million? Why we spent 30 days targeting military installations instead of 30 minutes burning your cities? Tashiva was quiet for a long moment. You're teaching us something. We're teaching you the difference between can and will, Garrett said, between capability and intent. We could have sterilized your planet in 6 hours, turned every city to ash, made your world uninhabitable for 1,000 years. We have weapons that could do that. He pulled up a holographic display, showed schematics for weapons that made Tashiva's breath catch, relativistic kinetic impactors, quantum singularity bombs, self-replicating drone swarms, and the image changed to show a massive orbital platform, 30 kilometers long, bristling with arrays that bent light around them. Helios, stellar destabilization weapon, pointed at a star, activated and watch that star go supernova. Sterilize an entire system, kill billions. Tashiva's hands were shaking. And we didn't use any of them. We used precision strikes and evacuation warnings and surgical removal of your military capacity. Do you know why? Because you're not monsters. Because mercy is a choice, Evelyn corrected. Not weakness. Your council thought our mercy meant we were soft, prey species who would accept compensation and move on. They were wrong. We believe in mercy, but mercy must be protected. And the only way to protect it is to make the consequences of violating it absolutely catastrophic. She stood walking to the viewport where Zelvan Prime turned slowly low. We're not here to conquer you, Premier. We're here to make sure you never forget what happens when you attack humanity's healers, and to show the rest of the galaxy that there are lines that cannot be crossed. Garrett stood beside her. 300 years ago, Earth was in ruins. 3 world wars had left our planet barely habitable. An alien species called the Vorlons found us. They could have conquered us easily. We were helpless, desperate. Instead, they showed us mercy, gave us technology to rebuild, taught us how to reach the stars, then left us to find our own path. He looked at Tashiva directly. They taught us that true strength is helping your enemy stand up, that real power means knowing when to destroy and when to build. We've been paying that forward for 3 centuries. Today is no different. But you destroyed our military, killed 43,000. Because you needed to learn the lesson, Garrett said simply. The Vorlons taught us mercy, but they also taught us that mercy must be earned, must be respected. Your High Council forgot that. Thought they could test whether we meant it, so we reminded them, reminded all of you, reminded the entire galaxy. He leaned forward. We could have done so much worse, Premier. We chose not to. That choice is what separates civilization from barbarism, guardians from tyrants. That's the lesson, not that we're strong. The galaxy already knew that even if they tried to forget, the lesson is that we're strong enough to choose restraint. That's real power. Evelyn pulled up documents on the holographic display. Your formal surrender will include the following terms. Your military will be limited by treaty to defensive forces only. We will monitor compliance for the next generation. In exchange, Earth will guarantee your security from external threats. Any species that attempts to take advantage of your reduced capacity will deal with us. She pulled up reconstruction plans. Additionally, we will provide humanitarian assistance, food, medical supplies, construction materials, engineering support. We will help rebuild your civilian infrastructure. What we will not do is help rebuild your military. Tashiva looked at the plans. They were generous, more generous than she had any right to expect. Why help us at all after what we did? Evelyn and Garrett exchanged a look. Then Evelyn spoke. Because breaking you was necessary. Helping you rebuild is a choice. That choice defines who we are. We're not here to become monsters. We're here to make sure mercy survives. And mercy means knowing when to destroy and when to heal. The meeting concluded with signatures on documents that would reshape Zelvani civilization for the next century. Limited military, human protection, reconstruction assistance, and a memorial. To be built on Zelvan Prime. 697 names. The crew of the Hope's Light. So that no one would forget why this happened. So that no one would forget what mercy cost when it was taken for granted. Galactic Council Station. Emergency Session, July 30th, 2387. The Grand Chamber was built to hold representatives from 47 species. Today it was standing room only. Every ambassador had come. Every species wanted to see how the Council would respond to Earth's actions. Ambassador Lorelei Vaughan represented humanity. She was 58, had spent 20 years building relationships with other Council races, had worked for integration and cooperation. Now she stood before them defending the most aggressive military action in galactic history. The human delegation will address the Council. Lorelei stepped to the central platform. Her image was projected throughout the chamber. Honored representatives, I understand your concerns. What happened at Zelvan Prime was unprecedented in Council history, but so was the attack on the Hope's Light. The destruction was disproportionate. The Krenoth ambassador interrupted. His species was at war with the Zelvani, but even he was disturbed. 43,000 military dead for 697 civilians. You destroyed their entire military capacity. 697 healers, Lorelei corrected. Not soldiers, not combatants, healers. People who sailed into war zones to save lives. Your lives, Zelvani lives, anyone's lives. And they were murdered in cold blood as a planned military operation. She pulled up the recording. Councillor Vexar's planning session. His words echoed through the chamber. Humans are soft, prey species. If we strike their medical ship, they'll protest, file complaints, eventually accept compensation. Prey species always do. This is a simple tactical assessment. We test their resolve, confirm their weakness, and proceed accordingly. Laughter from the Zelvani Council. The chamber fell silent. This was not a mistake, Lorelei continued. Not a rogue commander. This was official policy. Councillor Vexar planned it. High Command authorized it. Admiral Kestros admitted it was a planned military operation. They wanted to test whether we meant it when we said medical ships were protected, whether our commitment to mercy was real or theater. So we showed them. Showed all of you. The Therelian ambassador stood. Her species was ancient, peaceful. They had lost medical ships to pirates over the years and filed endless protests that went nowhere. Ambassador Vaughan, we understand your anger, but what you delivered was not justice. It was devastation. Lorelei met her eyes. Ambassador Kitara, 40 years ago, your medical ship Healing Wing was destroyed by pirates. 342 of your people died. The Council investigated for 5 years, issued condemnations, imposed sanctions, and in the end, nothing changed. The pirates were never caught. Tell me, Ambassador, how many Therelian medical ships have you lost since then? The silence stretched. 2 more, Kitara admitted softly. And how many human medical ships have been attacked in the century since we joined the Council? Only the Hope's Light. Exactly, because 30 years ago, when pirates fired on our hospital ship Sanctuary, we hunted every vessel involved. It took 4 years. We pursued them across 6 systems, and when we found them, we gave no quarter. Word spread. Do not touch human medical ships. The cost is too high. She looked around at all the assembled species. The Zelvani forgot that lesson. Or perhaps they never learned it because the Council's previous responses taught them that attacking medical ships carried no real consequences. We corrected that misconception. Captain Evelyn Harper stepped onto the platform beside Lorelei. She wore her dress uniform. The collar bore the insignia of her destroyed command. The Hope's Light. Her arm was still in a sling. She moved carefully, each breath visible effort. But she stood straight. I am Captain Evelyn Harper. I was the commanding officer of the Hope's Light. I died aboard that ship when the Zelvani tested whether humanity actually cares about its healers. I survived by luck and the skill of rescue teams who pulled me from wreckage that should have been my grave. She pulled up images, the debris field, bodies floating in space, medical equipment scattered among the stars. 697 people, doctors, nurses, engineers. They existed only to heal, and they were murdered to prove a point, to test a theory, to see if we were really as committed to mercy as we appeared. Her voice went cold as winter. So we answered, we showed you our true strength, the fleets we'd hidden for 300 years, the weapons we'd built in secret. The military power we'd maintained while pretending to be peaceful traders. She paused. Let it sink in. We built 7 stellar destabilization weapons, Helios platforms, each one capable of igniting a star, of sterilizing an entire system. We built them 200 years ago. Gasps echoed through the chamber. You see one Helios over Zelvan Prime right now. Here's what you don't see. The hologram changed, showed 6 more platforms, each orbiting a different star, each pointed at a major council world. We built 7, one for each major council system. We've had the power to sterilize this entire sector for 2 centuries. Every treaty we signed, every peace talk, every cooperative negotiation. We held guns to your heads, loaded, aimed, safeties off. She looked at each ambassador in turn. And you never knew. The silence was absolute. We could have used them during the Krenoth conflicts, during pirate raids, during trade disputes. Anytime we wanted leverage, we could have revealed this power, threatened you, extorted you, conquered you. She paused. And then, we chose not to. We spent 200 years with the power of genocide at our fingertips, and we used it 0 times. We built weapons that could crack planets, and we used precision strikes instead. We could have burned Zelvan Prime to bedrock in 6 hours, and we spent 30 days surgically removing only military targets. That is what civilization looks like, not the weapons, the choice not to use them, the restraint to match force to necessity, the wisdom to know that power without limits is tyranny. The chamber remained utterly silent. You made weakness into virtue. Evelyn continued. You turned mercy into vulnerability. You created a system where attacking medical ships carried no real cost. We changed that system, not with words, not with protests, with overwhelming force applied with surgical precision. And now you're going to see something you've never seen before. What's that? Someone called out. You're going to see medical ships move freely through war zones without fear. You're going to see pirates think twice before targeting healers. You're going to see that protecting mercy requires teeth, real teeth, not diplomatic protests, not economic sanctions, power, real power, wielded with restraint but available when needed. Lorelei stepped forward again. Earth is withdrawing from the Galactic Council effective immediately. We will form an independent protectorate force. We will defend species who cannot defend themselves. We will guarantee the safety of medical vessels from any civilization. We will respond to threats against civilian populations. And we will ask for nothing in return. This is not empire. This is not conquest. This is duty, responsibility, guardianship. She looked at each ambassador in turn. We spent 300 years hiding our strength, building in secret, preparing for the day someone would test us. That day came. We answered. And now the galaxy knows humanity's mercy is real. But it is a gift, not a weakness. Touch our healers again and face extinction. The session ended without a vote. There was nothing to vote on. Earth had already made its decision. The action had already been taken. The message had already been delivered. And across the galaxy in war zones and contested territories and pirate havens, the word spread. Do not touch human medical ships. Do not attack human healers. Do not test whether they mean it. The cost is total. The consequences are absolute. And humanity has 7 sons ready to prove it. 3 years later, year 2390, June 18th, Earth Memorial Gardens, Washington District. The rain fell soft and steady, the kind of rain that felt like the sky was grieving. Admiral Evelyn Harper stood before a wall of black granite, her uniform crisp despite the weather, her grey hair more silver than brown, now darker where the water touched it. 697 names were carved into that stone, 697 people who had died doing their duty, 697 healers who had believed that mercy meant something. She found the name she always found, always visited first, Dr. Frederick Grant. 3 years today, Fred, she said softly. 3 years since they killed you, killed all of you. Feels like yesterday, feels like forever. Her fingers traced his name, the letters worn smooth by rain and time, and the touch of too many hands seeking comfort. I kept your promise, the one you made me swear after my daughter died. You said if I transferred to medical, I had to promise to never let grief make me cruel, to never forget that healing was the highest calling. She smiled, sad and small. I've overseen the deaths of 43,000 people since you died, Fred, supervised the destruction of an entire military infrastructure, became everything I left behind when I joined you on the Hope's Light. But I did it so that people like you could work without fear, so that healers could sail into war zones knowing someone would avenge them if they fell. The rain continued to fall. Behind her, a presence waited, patient, respectful. Admiral Nathaniel Garrett was 71 now. 3 more years added to an already long life. 3 years watching the galaxy adjust to the new reality humanity had created. Touch our healers and we will break you. So far, no one had tested it again. Evelyn finished her private words and turned. Saw Garrett waiting with a young officer she didn't recognize. Admiral, I didn't expect you. I know, but today's important. 3-year anniversary of the Hope's Light. And we have news. Thought you should hear it first. What kind of news? The kind that tells us whether the lesson took. Come on. Briefing in 20 minutes. You'll want to dry off first. Earth Defense Command, Strategic Operations Center. The room had changed in 3 years. New screens showing ship positions across 50 systems. New flags representing species that had joined the Protectorate. New faces among the command staff. But some things remained the same. The display at the center of the room still showed the Zelvan system. Still tracked Zelvani ships with the attention of a doctor monitoring a recovering patient. Still marked every military installation with overlays showing strength and capability, making sure they stayed within treaty limits. Commodore Rachel Winters stood at the display, now commanding the Oversight Task Force. Her sister had died on the Hope's Light. She had been given a simple order 3 years ago, make sure the Zelvani remember. Status report, Commodore. Admiral Garrett, Admiral Harper. Good to see you both. Rachel's professionalism couldn't quite hide the warmth in her voice. Current Zelvani military strength stands at 12 patrol frigates, 8 system defense boats, and 4 medical transports, all within treaty parameters. Their shipyards have produced 6 civilian freighters this year. 0 military vessels. Economic status. Recovering faster than projected. Earth reconstruction assistance concluded 6 months ago. They're self-sufficient now. GDP is at 70% of pre-war levels and climbing. Unemployment has dropped to 8%. Food production exceeds domestic needs. Evelyn studied the data. They're doing well. Better than well, Rachel agreed. Premier Tashiva has proven to be an exceptional leader. She's transformed their economy from military-industrial to civilian development, education, infrastructure, medical research. They're becoming productive members of the galactic community. Then the people, how do they feel about us? Rachel's expression grew complicated, mixed. About 40% still resent us for what we did. They see their dead as martyrs, their destroyed military as a humiliation. But 60% understand why it happened, support Tashiva's new direction, and that number is growing as the younger generation comes of age, the ones who grew up learning about the Hope's Light in their schools. Yes, ma'am. Tashiva made it mandatory curriculum. Every Zelvani child now learns what their High Council did, what it cost, why it can never happen again. She's turning it into their cultural memory, their original sin and redemption story combined. Garrett nodded slowly. That's what we hoped for, not hatred, not fear. Understanding, recognition that actions have consequences, that mercy must be respected or it ceases to exist. He pulled up new data. But that's not the news I brought you here to discuss. This is, the display changed. Showed a region of space near the Theralian border. Multiple ship signatures, weapons fire, distress calls. 2 hours ago, the medical ship Mercy's Hope transmitted a distress call. Theralian flagged vessel Operating in the contested zone between Therelian and Krenoth space, they were treating wounded from both sides when they were approached by unidentified ships. Evelyn's jaw tightened. Pirates. Looks like it. 3 vessels. Heavy cruiser class. Weapons hot. They ordered the Mercy's Hope to stand down and prepare for boarding. Said they were claiming the medical supplies and any patients worth ransom. Someone didn't get the memo. Apparently not. But here's where it gets interesting. The Mercy's Hope sent the distress call on open channels. Standard emergency frequency, and this is who responded. New signatures appeared on the display. 3 distinct groups converging on the medical ship's position. Zelvani Defense Patrol, Krenoth Border Squadron, Therelian Peacekeeping Force. 3 enemies. All of them jumped to protect the medical ship. Together. Silence in the operations center. They're working together. Evelyn's voice carried disbelief. The Zelvani and Krenoth have been killing each other for 3 years. They coordinated response within 90 seconds, shared tactical data, formed a protective screen around the Mercy's Hope. When the pirates saw 3 separate fleets defending 1 medical ship, they ran without firing a shot. Garrett smiled. It was tired, but genuine. This is what we built, people. This is the world we created when we broke the Zelvani. We didn't just teach them a lesson, we taught everyone. Medical ships are sacred. Attack them and the entire galaxy responds, not because we told them to, because they chose to. Have we made contact with the ships involved? We have. And this is the part you need to hear, Evelyn. Commander Tavish of the Zelvani defense ship Redemption requested to speak with you specifically. The name meant nothing for a moment. Then, Evelyn remembered. Tavish. He was Kestros' tactical officer, the one who warned him the attack was coming, the one who testified against his own high command. The same. He's been promoted, runs the Zelvani patrol now. He wants to brief you personally on the incident. Says it's important, called it a thank you. When? Now. He's waiting on secure channel. Conference room Alpha. Secure communication. The hologram that appeared was Zelvani. Dorsal crests raised in what Evelyn had learned was respect. Young for his species, early 40s in human years, eyes that had seen combat and chosen a different path. Admiral Harper, thank you for taking this call. Commander Tavish, congratulations on your promotion. I understand you just protected a Therelian medical ship. We did, along with Krenoth and Therelian forces. It was... He paused, searching for words. It was strange. 3 years ago, we were killing each other. Today, we coordinated perfectly to protect healers. No hesitation, no question, just immediate response. That's what we hoped would happen. I know, and I wanted you to know it worked. When those pirates approached the Mercy's Hope, every ship in sensor range had the same thought. Not again, never again. What happened to the Hope's light cannot happen to anyone else. His crest lowered slightly. Admiral, I need to tell you something. When Admiral Kestros ordered the attack on your ship, I questioned it privately to other officers. But I did not refuse, did not openly resist. I followed orders even though I knew they were wrong. 697 people died because officers like me chose obedience over conscience. You testified against your high command, exposed the conspiracy. That took courage. It took survival instinct. I testify because I saw what you did to my fleet in 4 hours and knew you could do worse. But courage would have been refusing the order to begin with. Courage would have been standing up before 697 people died. He straightened. So I swore that I would never again follow orders I knew were wrong. And I would never again allow medical ships to be threatened while I drew breath. Today was the first test of that oath. There were 3 pirate cruisers. We had 1 patrol frigate. By any tactical analysis, we should have waited for reinforcements. But I did not wait. I jumped immediately. Because that oath matters more than tactical advantage. Evelyn felt something tight in her chest loosen slightly. You did well, Commander. You honored the Hope's Light's memory better than any monument could. There is a monument actually, on Zelvan Prime. Premier Tashiva dedicated it last year. 697 names. Your crew. And above them, a single line they healed. They died. We learned. His image pulled back slightly, revealing others standing behind him. Krenoth, Terelian. Admiral, I've taken the liberty of assembling the commanders who responded to today's incident. We wanted you to see what your sacrifice created. A Krenoth officer stepped forward, large, heavily armored, from a warrior culture that made the Zelvani look peaceful. I am Commander Vrex of the Krenoth Border Squadron. 3 years ago, my people were at war with the Zelvani. Today, we protected a medical ship together. This would have been impossible before you taught us that healers stand above politics, above war, that they deserve protection from all of us, not just their own species. A Terelian officer appeared next, slender, elegant, from a species that had lost medical ships for decades and done nothing but file protests. I am Captain Celine of the Terelian Peacekeeping Force. For 40 years, my people watched our healers die and asked others to stop the killings. Today, we stopped it ourselves. Not because Earth commanded us, because we finally understood that protecting mercy requires force, real force, the kind you demonstrated over Zelvan Prime. The 3 alien officers stood together, representatives of species that had been enemies or victims or bystanders, now standing unified in defense of healers. This is what humanity built, Tavish said. Not an empire, not a conquest, a coalition, a commitment, a recognition that some things are worth fighting for together. Evelyn's voice was rough when she spoke. Commander Tavish, relay a message to your government. Tell Premier Tashiva that Admiral Evelyn Harper says thank you. You learned the lesson. Now teach it to others. I will. And Admiral, the pirates who fled today, they were identified as the same group who killed the Terelian ship Healing Wing 40 years ago. The ones who were never caught, we've transmitted their position to your protectorate force. I believe you still have unfinished business with them. The transmission ended. Garrett looked at Evelyn. What do you think? I think we did it. Not just punished the Zelvani. Changed the galaxy's understanding of what protecting healers actually means. Made it real. Made it automatic. Made it everyone's responsibility. That was always the goal. Break them, rebuild them, show others that mercy protected is mercy preserved. Sir, what about those pirates? Tavish is right. They're the ones who killed the Healing Wing 40 years ago. The Terelians never got justice. Garrett's smile went cold. Then I suppose it's time they did. Commodore Winters, take a task force. Hunt them down. No quarter, no prisoners, no mercy. Show the galaxy that the lesson applies to everyone. Council members, pirates, anyone who thinks healers are acceptable targets. Yes, sir. With pleasure. 1 week later, Deep Space, Pirate Haven designation Whiskey 7. The pirates had run to a system that officially did not exist. No registered planets, no recorded settlements, just asteroids and darkness, and the kind of people who preferred it that way. They thought they were safe. They were wrong. Commodore Rachel Winters commanded the task force from the heavy cruiser Defiant. 3 cruisers, 1 destroyer. More than enough for what needed to be done. Her sister's name was on the Hope's Light Memorial. She had been 26, a nurse who sang to patients to calm them before surgery. Rachel hadn't cried at the funeral, hadn't cried during the bombardment of Zelvan Prime, hadn't cried in 3 years. Tonight she would sleep well. Sensor contact, multiple ships in the asteroid cluster. Configuration matches the vessels from the Mercy's Hope incident. Are they alone? Negative, Commodore. Detecting approximately 20 additional ships. Looks like a full pirate base. Small freighters, patrol boats and... Ma'am, we're reading a disabled medical ship. Looks like they've been using it for parts. Rachel's hands tightened on her command chair. Which medical ship? IFF is badly damaged but... Ma'am, it's Terelian. Age profile suggests 40 years. This could be the Healing Wing. The ship that started it all. 40 years. 40 years, these pirates had operated freely, killing healers, stripping medical ships, living off the suffering of others while the council filed protests and did nothing. Hail them. Let's see if they understand what's about to happen. The pirate leader appeared on screen, human ironically, from one of the outer colonies that had rejected Earth authority decades ago. Scar across his face, eyes that had forgotten what mercy looked like. Well now, Earth military, long way from home, aren't you? This is Commodore Rachel Winters of the Earth Protectorate Force. You attacked the medical ship Mercy's Hope 6 days ago. You are also wanted for the destruction of the Theralian medical ship Healing Wing 40 years ago. You will power down your vessels and prepare to be destroyed. The pirate laughed. Destroyed, lady. There are 20 ships here. You've got 4. The math doesn't work in your favor. How about you turn around before someone gets hurt? The math works fine. Your 20 ships crewed by cowards who prey on the weak were 4 ships crewed by people who spent 3 years making sure no one ever attacks healers again. We know every tactic you've ever used because humanity invented most of them. You have 30 seconds to power down. After that, we stop being polite. You're bluffing. 29 seconds. The pirate's smile faded. He looked off screen, conferencing with others. Listen, we can deal. You want the medical ship? Take it. Want information. We know things about Council fleet movements. Could be valuable. 15 seconds. Damn it, you can't just attack us. There are rules. Even in war, there are rules. Rachel's voice went deadly quiet. She thought of her sister, of the song she used to sing. You're right, there are rules. The most important one is simple. Don't touch medical ships. You broke that rule 40 years ago. You broke it again 6 days ago. My sister died on the Hope's Light following those rules. Now you pay the price. Time's up. All ships, weapons free. Target the pirate vessels. Leave nothing but debris. The battle was not a battle, it was an execution. Human weapons had 3 years to be refined. 3 years of practical experience breaking military forces. 3 years of knowing that the galaxy was watching, judging, waiting to see if Earth meant what it said. The pirates fought. They were not incompetent. Had survived decades in one of the most dangerous professions in the galaxy. It did not matter. In 12 minutes, all 20 pirate vessels were destroyed or disabled. The ones that tried to run were hunted down. The ones that tried to fight were obliterated. The ones that tried to surrender were ignored. Rachel had been given an order, no quarter. She followed it. When the last pirate ship went dark, she opened a channel to the Theralian government. Theralian Council, this is Commodore Winters of Earth Forces. 40 years ago, you lost the medical ship Healing Wing to pirate attack. 342 of your people died. The council investigated, but justice was never delivered. Today, we found the pirates responsible. They are dead, all of them. Consider this a belated but sincere condolence for your loss. She paused. And a promise. No one attacks healers while Earth draws breath. Not council members, not pirates, not anyone. This is the new law. We enforce it with extreme prejudice. Tell the galaxy. The transmission ended. That night, Rachel Winters cried for the first time in 3 years. Not from grief, from relief. Her sister's death had meant something. 2 years later, year 2392, Earth Protectorate Force Academy, graduation ceremony. 5 years after the Hope's Light died, humanity had created something new. The Academy trained officers not just for war, but for peacekeeping. Not just to destroy, but to protect. To stand guard over the galaxy's vulnerable and dare anyone to test them. Admiral Nathaniel Garrett stood at the podium, 73 years old, officially retired from active command, but still teaching, still making sure the next generation understood. You are the first class to graduate from this academy. The first generation trained specifically for the mission we've undertaken. Guardian duty, protectorate service, standing watch over those who cannot defend themselves. 200 cadets stood at attention. Young faces, eager eyes, most of them born after the Hope's Light. Growing up in a galaxy where medical ships moved freely and pirates feared to attack them. They did not remember how it used to be. That was Garrett's job, to make sure they never forgot. 5 years ago, a medical ship called Hope's Light was destroyed by the Zelvani Collective. 697 healers died. It was not an accident, not a mistake. It was a test. They wanted to see if humanity would actually respond to the murder of our medical personnel, or if we would accept compensation and move on like other species had done for centuries. He pulled up the image, the debris field, bodies floating in space, medical equipment scattered among the stars. We responded. We destroyed their military in 4 hours of combat. We spent 30 days dismantling their war machine from orbit. We killed 43,000 of their warriors. We broke them so thoroughly that 3 years later they protect medical ships alongside former enemies. Silence in the auditorium. Some called us monsters. Some said our response was disproportionate. They asked how 697 deaths justified 43,000. I will tell you how. He pulled up new statistics. In the 5 years before the Hope's Light, there were 27 documented attacks on medical vessels across the galaxy. In the 5 years since, there have been 2, both by pirates who were subsequently hunted down and eliminated. Medical ship casualties have dropped 97%. Healers work without fear. Wars continue, but the wounded receive treatment regardless of which side they fight for. 697 died so that millions could live. That is the calculus. That is the burden. That is the responsibility you are accepting by graduating today. He looked at them, saw himself 50 years ago, young, uncertain, not yet carved by the hard decisions that command demanded. You will be sent to war zones. You will stand between civilians and violence. You will protect medical ships and humanitarian convoys and refugee populations. You will be asked to use overwhelming force, to respond to threats with devastating precision. And you will be asked to show restraint, to know when to destroy and when to spare, to understand that real strength is choosing not to use all the power at your disposal. This is hard, harder than pure war, where the objective is simple victory. You must be strong enough to break anyone who threatens the innocent, and wise enough to stop before you become the thing you fight against. Admiral Evelyn Harper stood from her seat in the front row. She had been asked to speak as well, as the survivor, the witness, the one who had died and returned. Admiral Garrett has told you about the calculus, about the numbers, about the strategy. I'm going to tell you about the cost. She walked to the podium. At 57, she looked older than her years. Gray hair, lines carved by hard choices. But her eyes were clear, determined. Her dress uniform bore decorations from 5 years of protectorate service, actions against pirates, interventions in civil conflicts, humanitarian missions, and one decoration that stood out, a simple ribbon marked with a white cross on red background, the Hope's Light Memorial Ribbon, given only to the 3 survivors. I was captain of the Hope's Light when she died. I was on the bridge when the torpedoes hit. I watched my crew die, felt the ship break apart around me, spent 2 weeks in surgery afterward, barely alive, wondering why I survived when 697 others did not. She pulled up images, not of the debris field, not of the attack, of her crew, alive, smiling, working. Dr. Frederick Grant, Chief Medical Officer, he saved 3,000 lives in 23 years of service. Taught me that healing was the highest calling. Died in Medical Bay 1 when a torpedo struck while he was trying to stabilize a Krenaut soldier. Ensign Riley Morrison, 23 years old, sensor officer. She wanted to be an explorer, map unknown systems. She died at her post sending distress signals until the bridge lost power. Lieutenant Jameson Blake, 28, communications officer. He sang at crew parties, had a voice that could make you cry. He died transmitting our medical status on every frequency we had, hoping someone would hear and help. More faces appeared, more names, more stories of people who had chosen to heal and died for that choice. These are the people you serve, not the ones who live, but the ones who died. You carry their memory, their purpose. Their belief that mercy means something and is worth protecting. When you face a threat, remember them. When you must use force, remember why. When you show restraint, remember that mercy is a gift we give, because people like them believed in it. She looked at the cadets directly. Some of you will die doing this work. Protectorate duty is dangerous. We make enemies, pirates, warlords, anyone who profits from chaos and suffering. They will target you, kill you if they can, and when they do, others will avenge you. We'll hunt down those responsible and eliminate them, because that is the promise we made. Touch our guardians, and we will break you. But you will also save lives, thousands of them, millions if you do this long enough. You will make it possible for healers to work without fear, for refugees to reach safety, for civilians to survive wars that are not their fault. That is the trade, your risk for their safety, your vigilance for their peace. It is worth it. Every time, every cost, every sacrifice. The ceremony concluded with the oath. 200 voices speaking in unison. I swear to protect those who cannot protect themselves, to stand guard over the innocent, to respond to threats with overwhelming force and to show mercy when mercy is earned, to remember that power without restraint is tyranny and that real strength is choosing when not to act. This I swear on my honor and my life. Year 2397, June 18th, 10 years after the Hope's light. The memorial had grown. What started as a simple wall of names had become a garden. 697 trees, planted one for each crew member. Paths winding between them where visitors could walk and remember. Today, the anniversary, thousands came. Families of the dead, the two other survivors, both had retired, both came every year. Officers who had served in the response, cadets from the academy, citizens from across human space and beyond. Zelvani came too. Premier Tashiva, older now but still sharp. Commander Tavish in full dress uniform. A delegation from Zelvan Prime bearing flowers from their world. An offering. An apology. A recognition. Admiral Evelyn Harper walked through the garden slowly. She was 62 now. White hair, lines on her face that told stories of hard choices and sleepless nights. She had commanded the Protectorate Force for 3 years, overseen 200 interventions, stopped 12 civil wars, protected 43 medical ships from threats, hunted down every pirate who dared test whether Earth meant its promise. She was tired, had submitted her retirement papers. This would be her last anniversary as an active officer. But today, she was here to remember. Admiral Garrett found her at Dr. Grant's tree. The old man was 78 now, retired 5 years ago, but still teaching at the academy 1 day a week, still making sure no one forgot. Evelyn, Nate, you came. Every year, same as you. They stood together in silence. 2 old warriors at a memorial for healers. Do you think we did the right thing? Evelyn asked. 43,000 dead. An entire military destroyed. 10 years of our lives enforcing consequences. Was it worth it? Garrett looked at the garden, at the families visiting, at the Zelvani delegation laying flowers with genuine remorse, at the children, human and alien, both learning the names. Look around you. 3 former enemy species standing together to honor our dead. Medical ships operating in 15 active war zones. Pirate attacks down to almost nothing. And this, he pulled up a data pad showing recent news. Yesterday, a medical ship in Krenot space had an equipment failure. Not an attack, just a malfunction. Within 20 minutes, ships from 6 different species arrived to offer assistance. 6 species, former enemies, all dropping what they were doing to help healers because that's what the galaxy does now. By killing 43,000 people, by teaching a lesson so harsh no one will ever forget it. Yes, we killed, destroyed, broke a civilization's military, and in doing so we saved more lives than we took. We created a system where mercy is protected not just by law but by force, where attacking healers brings immediate and overwhelming response, where the entire galaxy has learned that some lines cannot be crossed. Evelyn nodded slowly. Fred would have hated the violence. He believed healing was always possible, always better than hurting. Fred would understand that sometimes you have to fight so that healers can do their work without being murdered. That mercy must be defended or it ceases to exist. A sound interrupted them. A signal transmitted on open frequencies across the garden. Medical ship under attack. Sector 47. Unknown aggressors. Request immediate assistance. Before Garrett or Evelyn could move, responses came flooding in. Zelvani Defense Ship Redemption jumping to render aid. Krenoth Border Squadron responding. ETA 14 minutes. Terralian Peacekeepers en route. Human Protectorate Force Battle Group 3 moving to intercept. On the corporate security vessel Titan offering assistance. 8 responses in 30 seconds. From 6 different species. From former enemies and neutral parties and corporate interests. All rushing to protect a medical ship they did not know, carrying patients they had never met for no benefit except doing what was right. Evelyn felt tears on her face for the first time in years. That's your answer, Nate. That right there. 10 years ago, a medical ship would transmit distress and die waiting for help that never came. Today, the entire galaxy responds in seconds. Not because we told them to, because they chose to, because they learned. Because 697 people died and 43,000 followed them. And now everyone knows the cost of forgetting. The alert updated. The aggressors had fled before any response arrived. Just the knowledge that help was coming had been enough. Premier Tashiva approached them, Commander Tavish at her side. Admiral Harper. Admiral Garrett, we have completed our offering at the memorial. We wish to speak with you before departing. Premier, Commander, thank you for coming. It means a great deal that you continue to honor our dead. It is the least we can do, Tashiva said. Your dead purchased our enlightenment at a price we could never have paid willingly. They died healers. We responded by killing them. And in turn you taught us what that meant, not through words, but through consequences we could not ignore. She gestured to the garden. We have built a similar memorial on Zelvan Prime, 697 names, and above them a message they healed. We killed them. We learned. Never again. Every Zelvani child visits that memorial before their 10th birthday, Tavish added. They learn the names, learn what we did, learn what it cost. Not just for you, but for us. 43,000 of our warriors died because our leaders forgot that mercy is sacred. That lesson is now carved into our culture. We will never forget. That was the point, Garrett said. Not revenge, education, making the cost of forgetting so high that no one will ever test it again. You succeeded, Admiral. The galaxy is different now. Better. Medical ships move freely. Healers work without fear. Wars continue, but the wounded receive treatment. The innocent are protected. Not perfectly, not completely, but better than before. Much better. Tashiva reached into her robes and pulled out a small package. We brought something. Not to apologize. Apologies are insufficient for what we did, but to honor, to remember, to promise. She unwrapped it carefully. Inside was a sculpture, 697 small figures carved from Zelvani crystal that caught light and reflected it in colors that had no names in human languages. Each figure was unique, detailed, precious. 697 healers, each one carved by hand by a different artist on Zelvan Prime. We commissioned this 5 years ago. It took 300 sculptors working full-time to complete. Each artist studied one crew member, learned their life, their work, their dreams, and then carved them into immortality. She held it out to Evelyn. It belongs here, in this garden, so that all who visit will see not just names but people, individuals, each one precious, each one irreplaceable, each one mourned. Evelyn took the sculpture with shaking hands. In the light of Earth's sun, the 697 figures seemed to glow, seemed alive. Thank you. There are no words. Words are insufficient. Action is all we have. We acted wrongly 10 years ago. We act rightly now. We protect healers, honor their memory, teach our children, and we promise on the graves of our own dead that Zelvan will never again raise hand against those who heal. The ceremony continued into evening. Speeches were given. Stories were told. All 697 names were read aloud so that none would be forgotten. As the sun set, Evelyn stood at the central monument with Garrett beside her. "We should address them," Garrett said quietly. "One last time, together, the witness and the architect, the survivor and the commander. They deserve to hear from us. What do we say? The truth, the whole truth, the cost and the consequence and the choice." They walked to the podium together. Two old warriors who had built a new world on the graves of 697 healers. Evelyn spoke first. 10 years ago, I commanded a medical ship. I sailed into war zones to save lives. I believed that mercy was sacred, that healers stood above politics, that the rules protecting us meant something. She paused. I was right about mercy being sacred. I was wrong about the rules. The rules did not protect us. They died with 697 of my crew. But what rose from those ashes was something stronger than rules. A commitment, a promise, a recognition that mercy must be defended or it dies. Not defended with words, but with force, real force, overwhelming force, the kind that makes it clear, touch our healers and we will break you. 10 years later, that promise holds. Medical ships move freely. Healers work without fear. The galaxy has learned. Garrett stepped forward. Some call us monsters for what we did, for killing 43,000 to avenge 697, for destroying an entire military infrastructure to protect healers. They say the response was disproportionate, excessive, cruel. They're right. It was all those things. It was also necessary. Because mercy without teeth is just wishful thinking. Peace without power to protect it is just waiting to be violated. For centuries, the galaxy had rules protecting healers. Those rules failed. Again and again, ships were attacked, healers were killed, and nothing changed because the cost was never high enough to matter. We changed that, made the cost absolute, made it clear that attacking healers means your military dies, your infrastructure burns, your power ends, immediately, certainly, absolutely. He looked at the assembled crowd. Was it worth it? Ask the healers working tonight in 15 active war zones. Ask the refugees who reached safety because Protectorate ships guaranteed their passage. Ask the civilians who survived because we intervened. Then ask if 43,000 deaths were too high a price. Evelyn took over again. We don't ask you to call us heroes. We're not. We're guardians. The ones who stand in the dark and dare the monsters to test us. We killed. We destroyed. We broke a civilization to teach a lesson. That doesn't make us good. It makes us necessary. The Hope's Light crew were the heroes. They healed. They gave mercy freely. They believed in the better nature of the galaxy. They were murdered for that belief. We avenged them. Not because revenge is noble, because deterrence is necessary. Because the only way to protect healers is to make attacking them suicidal. 10 years later it works. The lesson holds, and 697 people did not die for nothing. She looked at the memorial, at the 697 trees, at the sculpture of 697 healers carved in crystal and light. We remember, we honor, we promise. No one will forget, no one will test us again. And healers will sail into hell, knowing that if they fall, we will avenge them so thoroughly that the galaxy will tremble. The crowd stood in silence. Then, slowly, they began to applaud. Not celebration, recognition, understanding, acceptance of the hard truth. Mercy must be defended, and humanity had learned how. 5 years later, year 2402, Admiral Garrett's final report. Admiral Nathaniel Garrett sat in his study on Earth, 78 years old, 54 years of service, retired now for 3 years but still sharp, still watching. The walls were covered with commendations, photos, memories of a lifetime in uniform. On his desk, the photograph of Evelyn Harper at her academy graduation, young, smiling, believing that building weapons meant they would never need to be used. Beside it, a small piece of debris from the Hope's light, a fragment of the ship's nameplate. He had kept it all these years. He picked up a pen, began writing his final report. To Earth Protectorate Command, from Admiral Nathaniel Garrett, retired Refinal Assessment, Operation Retribution plus 15 years. 15 years after the Hope's light, I can finally answer the question, was it worth it? Medical ship attacks down 98%, galactic cooperation unprecedented, former enemies now allies. The lesson learned. But the cost? I dream of the Zelvani dead every night. 43,000 faces I never saw. 43,000 families who mourned. Was it worth it? Ask the healers working tonight without fear. Ask the children who grew up in a galaxy where mercy is protected. Ask Evelyn Harper who died and came back and taught the galaxy what real strength looks like. I did what was necessary. History will judge if it was right. I'm ready for that judgment. He signed it, sealed it, left it on his desk. That night, Admiral Nathaniel Garrett died in his sleep, peacefully, at home, surrounded by memories of 7 decades of service. The report was found 3 days later, filed in the archives, where it would remain a final testimony to the cost of mercy defended. The medical shape, Hope's legacy, sailed through contested territory. 20 years had passed since the Hope's light died. A new generation of healers had grown up never knowing a time when medical ships weren't protected. Captain Sarah Mitchell commanded from the bridge. 29 years old, named after the woman who had commanded the Hope's light. A tradition now. Every medical ship captain bore the name of someone from that lost crew. Captain sensors detect weapon signatures. 3 unknown vessels approaching. Sarah felt her heart rate spike. She had studied the Hope's light incident at the academy, had memorized every name, had sworn the oath at their memorial, broadcast medical status, all frequencies. Before the unknown ships could respond, alerts flooded in. Zelvani Defense Ship Redemption responding. Krenoth Squadron inbound. Terrellian peacekeepers jumping. Human Protectorate Force Battle Group 3 en route. Within 90 seconds, 12 warships from 4 different species surrounded the Hope's legacy. A protective shell. Absolute. Unbreakable. The unknown ships fled without firing a shot. Sarah stared at the tactical display. 12 ships, 4 former enemies, all dropping everything to protect one medical vessel they'd never met. Communications sent thanks to all responding vessels. Already dawn, Captain, and we're receiving a message. Audio only. Source Hope's Light Memorial Archive. The voice was old, recorded years ago, but unmistakable. Admiral Evelyn Harper's final message. To all who sail in Hope's Light's name, you will never be alone. You will never be forgotten, and you will never be undefended. 697 died so you could heal without fear. 43,000 died so the galaxy would remember. And every ship that guards you now carries that memory. Sail safely. The Guardians watch. The promise holds. This is the gift we purchased with blood. This is the world we built with fire. This is mercy, defended forever. The transmission ended. Sarah looked at her crew, young, idealistic, believing in mercy, just like Evelyn Harper had 20 years ago. Resume course, she ordered quietly. We have wounded to collect. The Hope's legacy sailed on, and behind her 12 warships from 4 species watched until she was safely gone. Some lessons last forever. Some promises never break. And some gifts, once given, echo through eternity. This was all 3. Touch Earth's healers and die screaming. Some lessons are written in blood. Some promises are kept with fire, and some choices echo for generations. The galaxy remembers. The guardians watch. The mercy holds.